Aging, or the multiplicity of years, are universally recognized as a mark of blessing and being favored by the supreme powers. However, aging also comes with a progressive degeneration or natural whittling down of the major bodily senses, including sight, sound, feel, taste, and smell. Dementia, which is a syndrome in which there is deterioration in cognitive function, has proven to be a deadlier condition than the aforementioned and continues to take a toll on the aging population. Dr. Olutoyin Akande-Ajala is a consultant, geriatrician, currently working in the UK's National Health Service, and she joins us now. Thanks for being with us.
Hello.
Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what's the outlook for the field of geriatrics in Nigeria and care for the elderly? Are we where we should be in terms of qualitative healthcare for the aged?
Right, so no, we're not. That's just to answer that question simply. And I say that because, you know, the projection by the World Health Organization is that the number of elderly people is going to double in Nigeria within the next 5 years. And we're going to get to a point where we have more elderly people in Nigeria than we have in the UK. And the reason why I'm saying that is because in Nigeria now, we've only got 9 geriatricians. I'm one of them.
Just 9?
Just 9 for a population of 200 million people. In 2019, there was a survey done by the National Lifestyle Statistics Study was done in 2019. Sorry, I just know it's NLSS.
All right.
So they did a study in 2019 to see the number of elderly people that we have in Nigeria, and as of now, we have over 15 million people over the age of 60. So for that population, we have 9 trained geriatricians. Like I said, I'm one of them, and I wasn't fully here until 2018. So we're nowhere near having the numbers of specialists that you need to look after the aging population in Nigeria that you have in the UK or in the US or anywhere else actually in the Western world. So that's why I'm saying, you know, as of now, we're not ready for that population explosion of elderly people.
Dr. Akande-Ajala, is there any cultural context to this? Because, you know, when you probe further, you often find that in African culture, we don't like to submit our aged to care. It's almost frowned upon. Is there any merit to this line of thinking, or what's really going on? Why are we not interested in creating more care for our aging population?
I think things are changing. Things are changing rapidly, actually. So when I first came to Nigeria in 2018, I came as a geriatrician to set up an elderly healthcare service. And that was because I had been getting calls whilst I was doing my training. You know, lots of people were struggling looking after their elderly people. And it's not just the care, it's also the health care, you know, it's the nursing care, all sorts of things. You know, there were lots of issues. So that was the reason why I came to Nigeria to set up the service. Now I have a center in Lekki, you know, which is also to provide excellent healthcare for our elderly people. And when I first came up with the idea of coming to Nigeria, setting up an elderly healthcare service 14 years ago, I was told, who's going to be interested in that? Nobody's going to. Who looks after the elderly people in Nigeria? That wasn't what I found. What I found is that there is a void, a vacuum. You know, there was a big gap that needed to be filled. You know, old people were not being looked after properly. Actually, I actually believe that old people get mismanaged, you know, because of the peculiarities of being old. The body changes. So, of course, we have excellent healthcare professionals, but they're just not trained specifically to look after elderly people. You know.
Very, very good, Dr. Ajala. If I may come in here, you talked about that vacuum.
Yes.
And then we have the unfortunate scenario of the brain drain syndrome as well.
Yes.
A whole lot of our health professionals are leaving the shores, you know, for UK, America, Canada, or what have you. And then, you know, when he talks about you talked about you coming back and setting up. Don't you think the future for this geriatric sector is a little bit bleak now? We're still having this issue on ground and trying to fill up.
Well, I mean, it's worrying that we're having that brain drain at the moment, but I don't see it as being bleak because you have people like me, isn't it? Okay. So I left. I left in 1991. A year after I graduated from medical school, okay. I went to the UK. Geriatric medicine was not a thing. I had never come across that specialty until I got to the UK. Okay. So in the UK, geriatric medicine became a specialty in 1960. So it's actually one of the young specialties. So, I got there. My first job was in geriatric medicine. Okay. My consultant told me, Toyin, you'll be a brilliant geriatrician. And I absolutely loved it. I loved that specialty. And I went into geriatric medicine. So I've been in that specialty now for 27 years.
Good.
And I'm back now. And you have lots of people in the UK who are actually training to be geriatricians and the US,
Nigerians as well.
Nigerians as well. And, so we've got a bank of people outside of the country who can come back and contribute. So these younger doctors that are going to the UK or the US, they will come back. Or at least bring something back for us, Yeah.
And talking about bringing something back, let's shift our focus to dementia.
Yes.
And what is being done locally, because the statistics say that cases of dementia are rapidly increasing not just in Nigeria but across Africa. What's driving this?
I really don't know, but I can tell you one thing I have found. One thing I found, first of all, when I came to Nigeria in 2018, I always believed dementia was a Western problem. I did not know it was a problem in Nigeria. I was blown away. I was actually quite shocked. I was shocked, I was a bit disheartened because I didn't realize it was such a big problem. It's much bigger than people think. And one of the reasons why that is because you know how we are, culturally, we don't like to expose certain things, so people don't know the number of people who are living with dementia right now in the society. But as a geriatrician, I know because I get called. Right. And that is the number one thing that I get called for. Dementia.
All right, still talking about the dementia issue. Walk us through when it comes to prevention, and as one gets older, what should one be looking out for?
Okay, so dementia is actually, dementia is a condition caused by diseases. I need to make that clear first.
All right.
So diseases like Alzheimer's,
which is like a mental health condition.
It's not a mental health condition. It's a condition of the brain.
Okay.
So what happens is that the brain gets damaged by a disease. So a disease causes the brain to get damaged, and you have dementia, which is a syndrome of things. So memory loss, confusion, not being able to judge properly, not being able to execute actions, and invariably leading to the person needing help with most things. Do you understand? So it impacts their day-to-day living, and it is a permanent condition. It doesn't get cured. It's like diabetes.
Is it just for the aged? Or you can find that even in younger people?
You can have it in younger people. So I have slightly younger, so people have someone 50s, you can have it. And I'll tell you why that is important here in Nigeria. Because what I have found, so in the UK, for instance, there's been a difference. So I work in the UK, I work in Nigeria. So in the UK, the majority of people have Alzheimer's as the cause of their dementia. In Nigeria, the majority of people have vascular disease. I'll explain what that means as the cause of their dementia. That is very key. Vascular disease means that you've had some problem with the blood vessels in the brain, like a stroke or mini strokes, lots of mini strokes. So when we do scans, so but one of the first things I do if you send your parent to me with dementia is I'll get a scan, an MRI scan, because I want to see what the structure of the brain looks like. And what I've found in 95% of cases is that it is vascular damage. They have something called small vessel disease. The small blood vessels of the brain have been closed off. damage from hypertension that hasn't been properly controlled, diabetes that hasn't been properly controlled, high cholesterol that hasn't been properly controlled, you know. Other factors, stress. So there's some things we call vascular risk factors: diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol. Stress is a factor, but then of course stress, you know, causes all the high blood pressures and all of that. Obesity, you know.
And you say you get a lot of calls.
Yes.
What are the flags? You know, what is it that somebody observes that makes them feel that, you know, my parent or my elder relative might have dementia?
So the first thing is that they start to forget things. They start to forget things. They start to lose their memory. It starts with short-term memory most of the time. So they can't remember what they had for breakfast, can't remember where they left their things. And in fact, lots of people get very paranoid. And you might get a call from your child saying, I think someone's stealing my things because I don't know where, I have all my money, I don't know where it is, my clothes. So it starts with things like that. And then after some time, more changes. Lots of personality changes. So people who were previously quite calm and, you know, calm and just pleasant people suddenly become aggressive. Sometimes people wander out of the house, can't find their way back, get lost. You have people who, especially men, they drive the car out of the house, park it somewhere and don't know where they parked the car.
Wow.
And so start to forget, you know, the names of places, just can't remember. So starts with that, and then it just gets progressively worse.
Very good, Dr. Ajala. Now, you're widely traveled from your profile I was reading earlier, and well, I will ask you, what is the most common feature you would notice by people of the aged range we're talking about, irrespective of their ethnic affiliations? One common feature regarding, you know, dementia or what have you, that is very common with them.
So the main thing is, like I said, the memory loss and confusion. That is is that what you mean?
Yes,
because
exactly.
So that is it. That's the main thing. Of course, like I said, behavioral personality changes as well. You know, it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. With dementia, it's the same. Memory loss, what we call cognitive impairment, you know, where people just can't. So there's some people who were so good at things and their children actually tell you he was so good at this thing or that thing. Now they just can't perform. They can't execute functions, you know. They don't know what day it is, what year it is. They can't remember, you know, many things. They can't remember. Quite often they have long-term memory preserved for a while.
Yeah.
They can tell you what happened in 1942. But they can't tell you who came round yesterday or what they had for lunch, you know?
Now, with just 9, I believe, geriatricians in Nigeria and this, you know, the diagnosis of dementia on the increase, what does management look like? I know you said you have your center, but obviously there's not enough for everybody who needs this type of attention. Is this something that can be managed at home? Are there places that people can learn to care for their relatives, their loved ones who are facing these challenges?
Yes. So so we're not talking about prevention now. Talking about this has happened. What do we do next? The next thing to do is to try and slow down the deterioration, because we can slow it down. We can slow it down with medication. We can slow it down by, and this is why, like I said, in this environment, it's vascular dementia. That's the commonest sort of dementia. So we have to prevent that vascular damage to the brain. So I have, you know, teams, actually nationwide. I have specialist nurses and, you know, doctors, but especially my specialist nurses I use for this particular service, where we try and ensure that the vascular risk factors we're on top of it. You know, we're just making sure that we try and prevent the more damage being done to the brain. And there's medication as well that we give that helps, and we found to be effective. And then there are all sorts of other things that we can do as well. So my center just opened in Lekki. We have a Dementia Day activities unit, because that has been found to, it's just key in managing our patients, because what you want to do is you've got to stimulate people's brains. So the worst thing you can do for someone who is newly diagnosed with dementia is keep them at home, away from other people, which is what lots of people do, because they're embarrassed, because they go out and then people will notice that they're not quite okay. So they're worried, so they keep them at home, they stop them going to social events. So the reason why I have this unit is because that's a unit where it's a safe place, people can come, and we have, I have an occupational therapist and physiotherapy. Exercise is key, so we engage them in activities.
In other words, sensitization is very key to all that you do, especially when you just have 9 professionals. Definitely, there's still a lot.
There is a lot. We have a big gap, and we're all getting older. In fact, it's in my best interest that we have more geriatricians, because I want to age. I want to be old, and I want to stay here in my old age.
Very good. On that note, Dr. Olutoyin, consultant geriatrician, CEO founder, JBS Medicare Services, I'd like to thank you for joining us on the show. It's good to have you.